Hello and welcome back to the Aha Moment. I'm Amanda Kaczurka, and I am joined today with a very special guest. We have Casie Lucas-Szumigala with us. She's from Click Pragmatics here in Erie, Pennsylvania. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about first impressions, because we talked a little bit about it. If you listened to the episode where we reviewed some key takeaways from the SHRM Talent Conference, we talked a little bit about it then, but this is a really important topic because first impressions are super important.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that we're giving some really actionable tips and advice for both employers and candidates.
Yes.
Because it's important on both sides of the equation.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So before we get into that, though, Casie, would you
Yes.
introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Absolutely. Yes. So thank you for having me. It's so fun to be here. So my background is actually in speech language pathology. I was a practicing speech language pathologist for 18 years. And then lots of things happened, including COVID and the birth of two children, that kind of put me in a new direction. And I wanted to shift and try something new and different and apply my skills in a different way, especially during COVID. There's just so much poor communication happening all around that was very disappointing to see. And I was like, this isn't okay. And so I started Click Pragmatics. And now I work with businesses and their teams on improving their interpersonal communication skills. So I want to clarify, because this is important. People think like communications.
Right.
Like, I am not communications. I am not press releases, marketing. That is not me. I am interpersonal, relationship-based communication. So when there's companies that are struggling with personality dynamics, retention, all those types of things, usually it comes back to the basic issue of communication. And so that is what I help leaders and teams navigate. And I do that through individual coaching as well as consultative services with the company as a whole.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump right in,
do
if
it.
you're okay with that.
Yeah.
So my first topic that I'd like to talk about is, what are the most common nonverbal mistakes that candidates make when meeting a potential employer for the first time? So
let's first define nonverbal. Okay. So when we're thinking of nonverbal, we're thinking of the things that we can see, right? So we're thinking about our facial expressions, our body language, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think this will come as a surprise of what they are, but it's a surprise how poorly people are at doing them nowadays. So the very simple eye contact, that is nonverbal communication. And if you are not making eye contact, then you are not communicating well. Right off the bat, there's not a situation I can think of where that would not be true. So eye contact is incredibly important.
Sure.
As well as how you're standing, how you're moving your head, how you're positioning your arms. All of those things
And
really
are those
matter.
things moving, or are you just sitting there like some sort of statue?
Yes, right. And so one of the things that can be a real issue, and I think this will come up many times as we go through this topic, is matching your nonverbal with your verbal. So if you're like, I'm totally stoked to be here.
Waving your arms wildly.
Woo.
But your face is
Go
doing nothing.
job. It's weird. It's off-putting. I'm not trusting you. I'm not connecting with you. And that's just putting you off, you're starting off on the wrong foot. So eye contact. How you're moving your arms. How you're moving your face. How you're moving your eyebrows. So just those little versus just the staring. Those types of things make a huge difference. And those subtleties really matter. And I think people underestimate how much.
Yes, definitely. And one other thing I'll mention is, especially over Zoom, because a lot of interviews, especially as people are interviewing for remote positions or positions where, if it's an initial interview and they're not quite ready to bring someone on site for an interview, this matters even more.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I mean, I've definitely been on interviews with candidates where they're like looking everywhere but at the camera.
Yes.
It's like, what are you looking at?
Yes. Well, and But that's a good point too. Like, it's something that should be so common sense because you can see yourself,
Right.
but it doesn't connect sometimes. And you need to be not looking at yourself in the box. You need to be looking at the camera so that it looks like you are looking at them.
Yes.
And you need to be within view. Like, if it's just your head, that's weird.
Yes.
If you're far, far away and it's your whole body, I don't know. Like, I could maybe get behind that a little bit depending on how, but you really do have to pay attention to those things when you're going
The other thing that drives me nuts, and I've seen this so many times, interviews, not interviews, just meetings in general, but when you're meeting with someone and their screen where they're watching everyone else on the call and their camera are not in the same place.
Oh my gosh.
Drives me nuts.
Me too.
It's like the camera is taking a view of the left side of their head, but they're looking forward. And you're like, you have a lovely profile, Susan, but...
Right. Well, and so, like, to their credit, they have their camera on, so that's nice.
Sure.
So that's good.
We're going to call that progress.
But also... Yeah, and they're like so engaged, and you're like, "Who are these looking? What are they doing?" And it is so distracting.
Yes.
I agree.
So make sure your camera is in front of your face.
Yes,
not off to the side.
Right.
And at an appropriate angle, so it's not like up your nose.
Right.
Because that's not a good look either.
Yes. I'm just gonna. I mean, this might come up again too, but since we're on the Zoom call topic, also be very aware of what's behind you.
Things we shouldn't have to say.
Quick funny story.
But here we are.
But I was working with college students at a local university, and one of their final projects was to record themselves and send me this thing. And this one kid, I mean, you can just imagine, he has this huge flags behind him with, like, you know, marijuana leaves on it, and I was just like, dude. I was like, presentation was great. You cannot, like, you have to be aware,
my guy.
You have to be aware of this stuff. Like, you're lucky it's just, like, I'm just your professor. I'm nothing special. But, like, when you go out in the world, you cannot do that. Don't. Be very, very careful of that.
From an employer's perspective, what are some of the verbal, nonverbal things that can happen that maybe unintentionally create a bad impression with candidates?
So a lot of it has to do with, so the nonverbals that we just talked about, so like your facial expressions and things not matching. Also, though, the paraverbals, which is your tone and your inflection and your volume. So being mindful of, like, matching the energy in the room. If you have this, like, big booming voice and you're coming across this way, if you're talking to a quieter person, that could be very intimidating and threatening. But if you have that other person on the other end, you guys are sharing that energy, and that's really great.
Yeah.
So being mindful of that so that you are matching that. Also, there's depending on the candidates you are hiring, you know, like what level they're at. There's definitely, like, an intimidation factor for newer people. So if you're coming in hot, big, and puffing out your chest, you know, you're the queen bee or king of the whatever. I don't know. Is that the vibe that you're wanting to put off? Like, are you wanting these people to open up and be honest with you, or are they expected to, like, speak like robots and just be like, oh my gosh, if I say the wrong thing, this isn't going to work. So I think that it can be how the person enters the room and how they're having the conversation can have a huge impact on, like, one candidate could be so incredibly skilled, like, good for this job. But if they can't present themselves in the right way because they don't feel like that's the vibe and they're kind of like just trying to, like, figure it out,
you're spending all your time
you're
and
missing an opportunity.
Trying to read.
Yeah, and it's such an unnecessary, like, barrier to get over, you know?
Absolutely.
So I think having, like, understanding that you are the powerhouse in the room and maybe chill that out a little bit.
Dial it back.
Yeah, like, be aware and know how that can come off. One thing that I also think is really important is, and I see this a lot, unfortunately, is when you're in the interview or the businesses that are working with or interviewing candidates, it's almost like they're not even listening to the response.
Yeah.
They're asking the question. They're kind of going through the checklist of questions they have to ask. And it's, again, that doesn't match the room. So, like, you could be like, oh, okay, thank you. And it's like,
that's it?
Really? Like, it just feels empty, kind of. And so I think that's something too, like, when you're asking these questions. And I know for legal purposes, certain questions have to be asked certain ways in certain industries. So I understand that there isn't always like this finesse that can happen, but you can do that in different ways, like with your body, with your facial expressions. And like, thank you for that answer. Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. Just being like a human.
Yeah.
And finding those moments to connect.
And another thing I think that's important too, especially as an employer when you're going into those conversations, and a little tip that I think can be helpful is if your company, and hopefully your company does, your organization has core values, but I always think it's a good idea to just, when you're heading into an interview as a hiring manager, a supervisor, a CEO, it doesn't matter what level the position you hold is, just take a quick peek at those core values before you go into the interview room. Because remember, especially as candidates become more savvy about investigating organizational culture before they even apply to a position, they're going to be looking for signs that, hey, they really live out their core values.
Yes.
It's deeply ingrained in their culture. So if you just take a quick peek at those and kind of refresh your memory as far as like, okay, these are the things that are most important to us. So how do I, as an interviewer, go into that room and embody these things?
Absolutely. I agree completely. It just, it
goes a long way.
Mindset. It gets you in the right headspace before you go in. And I also, though, on this topic, something that I think I am seeing way more now than ever before, and it could just be because I'm newer to the space, but the whole, you're not just interviewing them, they're interviewing you too thing.
Yep.
I don't know if that's generational, where people are like, I'm not going to spend the next 10 years of my life working somewhere that I hate, so I'm doing, I don't know. But
it's actually not.
It's not new?
It's not generational.
It's not generational.
No, we're seeing candidates from, any generation, people, actually we see it a lot from folks who are like Gen X.
Yeah.
Dealing with, and there's tons of research, tons of speakers have done topics on this, but how Gen X is a generation that is really having to balance raising children and caring
aging
for parents.
adults.
Yep. So
that sandwich
huge
generation.
Priority shift, huge, how we think about how we spend our time and how we are able to spend our time.
Right.
There's been such a shift there. We actually see even more, question about the culture and the time management from that generation.
A lot of sense because they've also just experienced the first part of their career, something that was either working really well or not at all. Yeah. So they're going in with their list of what they're looking for.
I've got clarity now. We're moving.
Yeah. No,
forward.
that makes a ton of sense. But no, I think that, so keeping that in mind, like you said, those core values, knowing like, who are we? And am I about to show that to these people?
Yes.
Because they might blow your socks off and you need to do the same.
Right.
If you want to keep them.
Exactly. Yep. 1,000%. How can candidates consciously use nonverbal communication to project confidence and approachability during interviews, even when they're feeling super, super nervous? Because let's be real, you're nervous typically when you go into an interview.
Sure. So the one thing that I think is very, what is it? It's simple, but it's not easy, is breathing. It is.
Yeah, please remember to breathe.
You have to do that. I am really geeking out on Jefferson Fisher right now. He is my new favorite person. I'm listening to his podcast, reading his books. He's like my favorite guy currently. But he talks about this breath where you're not like, which can be, I don't know, kind of weird.
Yeah.
And he like teaches this thing about how you do this like quiet breath where you like breathe in your nose and then you kind of just breathe back out your nose and you do it while the person is talking.
Okay.
But it's a way that you're calming yourself down. So first, just do that.
Yeah.
Breathe. Other thing is going back to the eye contact. Whether, like, if you're nervous, there's no excuse to not look at the person in the face. Like, the worst thing you can be doing is like looking around. So nervous or not, breathe and look at the person, and you're in a good spot. Right away. Yeah.
Starting off on the right foot.
Starting off on the right foot. The other thing that you're doing right now, and I'm doing, is the nod. Right? So there's the people who do this the whole time.
Yeah. Never stop.
And like that can sometimes be weird.
A little bobbleheadish.
Yeah. But I don't know. I almost think I'd rather, I don't know.
Have it be done overly than not enough.
Not at all. Because otherwise you're just sitting there like staring at them and it's like, you're this like mannequin thing. So just a simple like nodding your head, tilting your head a little bit, raising your eyebrows. Those things show that you're interested.
Yeah.
They're showing that you're engaged. So just doing like, oh, or those types of things.
Yeah.
That right there, just those nonverbal things. The other thing that is talked about always is don't cross your arms. Like you don't want to be sitting like this. That just gives off a closed vibe, right? So even if you're on Zoom, like having your hands out, having them up, like just being up and kind of more forward is a nonverbal way of presenting yourself confidently, even though you might be like shaking in your boots.
Yeah. I think there's a tendency, especially when we're in situations when we're uncomfortable, to like, retreat into ourselves and
hold
you
your
see
breath.
the posture and like hold your breath and your shoulders go up.
Yes.
So it's a good reminder, I think, even as you're like walking into the room, or as the interview team is walking into the room, to do that, like, what do they call it? Like a 3-second relaxation. It's like, roll your shoulders back, release your tongue from the roof of your mouth, like take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And it's surprising. It surprises me every time how much
That
tension I'm carrying. And I'm
my
like,
gosh.
oh, okay. My ears really, or my shoulders really were in my ears.
Yes.
Like,
No, it's
how did that
so
happen?
true. And it's such a simple thing. And it's just, it's like your body and your brain, they're like, got it. And
You're
it's
like,
like,
oh, right. We're supposed to be relaxing.
Yes. And it works. It's like
It does.
the mind over matter.
Yeah. In virtual interviews, when you talked about this a little bit, when some nonverbal cues are limited, what else can candidates do, and employers for that matter, to make sure that they're creating a strong first impression?
So let's go back to the physical appearance of the space, the physical space.
Yes.
So being in a well-lit room makes you look better. It just does.
Yes.
So that's a controllable that is automatically going to put you in a good light, pun intended. So make sure that's a thing.
Yeah.
And then again, checking out what's going on behind you. I have to say, and I think this is an unpopular opinion, I don't love the backgrounds. Because I hate when people move how part of their face...
it like cuts your face
that kind of
off.
drives me nuts. I'm not going to lie. It's like,
same.
I don't care what your curtains look like. I don't care if your dog's on your lap. Like, just turn off the background so I can see who you really are. That's my own personal preference, though. I think other people, they feel like it's a lot more professional. And that's fine. I guess it's your own preference.
Sure.
But certainly pay attention to what is happening around you. So the lighting and the background. Also, being sure to, like, the thing that's easier to do in person is you can read somebody's cues to know when they're about to talk or about to stop.
Oh,
so
yeah,
then
that's
you
a good point.
know, like, oh, stop talking, they're not finished yet, or something like that. Virtual, it's still way better than the phone, obviously, but
be a
you
little
can,
trickier.
you can, and you say, how many times have you been in Zoom meetings before where you're like, oh, no, go ahead, Julie, Yep. No, go ahead. And it's like that,
Awkward cutting people off.
the thing, right? And so, really, again, kind of pulling in that breath, but allowing there to be a little bit of space. Like every second does not have to be filled with a word.
Yeah.
Or, kind of just taking a pause. That way, that person's not talking. Be like, yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And then answer. Because then, that kind of weird, uncomfortable dance thing.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think, and this is something that I actually struggled with for a really long time, and I've only recently started to get a little bit better with it. I am not good at, like, just sitting with silence.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I automatically feel like I have to fill it.
Yes.
And
Which
that's
is a
exactly what happens.
Yes.
Like you start
Yes.
talking over each other, and then it's like, oh, wait, no, you go. And then there's that awkward exchange, especially on Zoom, especially if there's like connectivity issues and you've got an audio delay.
Yeah.
Like it just...
That is big too. That audio delay is, that happens. And the best way to prevent or respond or react in the moment is just slow down a little bit, like give it a
Adjust
beat.
your pace. Yeah.
Give it a beat. And I also think there's a really cool opportunity there to also come off more confident if you are adding almost a closing to your statement where, so if you were to ask me a question and I'm the candidate and I'd be like, this is what I think, and then saying something like, well, I wouldn't say, what about you? That doesn't make any sense. But something that indicates, that's based on my experience. That's what I would say. Or that's been my experience so far. But there's like that natural, like, she's done. There's not more coming to that. It's kind of feeding or like intertwining that kind of just like conversational speak can also help.
Giving some sort of audio clue.
Yes.
Like, I'm done talking now, so if you have a follow-up question, like, this is the appropriate time to ask it.
Well, also coming off more conversational, which makes you more relatable.
Spoiler alert, that's super important in interviews. Being relatable, not coming in and being a robot. We don't want anybody to do that. Please do not do that. Before I get to the last question, is there anything else that you think would be relevant to share for someone, especially if they're, I think there's a lot of pressure right now for those who are looking for jobs. It's tough out there. We hear that regularly from candidates. Is there anything that you think they could be doing to kind of set themselves apart from a communication standpoint?
So what I would want to tell people is be true to who you are and don't try to fit the mold of what you think. And let me explain why. Because you have to know the job you're going into. You're interviewing for a reason. You think you're a good fit. You have the skill set. You want to be there, whatever. But honoring who you are so that you can show up as yourself and they are seeing who you are is helpful, because then you're not trying to keep up this persona.
It's exhausting.
Over the course of an interview, and then, oh my God, what if you get hired?
Yeah, right.
Crap. And now you do that all the time. Yeah. So I think that there's this like bias that if you're outgoing and confident and bubbly, that you just seem like a better candidate. And I think that that's unfair, because I think that people who are a little more maybe soft-spoken or quiet or whatever, that does not mean that they're not confident.
Sure.
They just have a different style. And I feel as though people are sort of inadvertently taught over the years, like, you got to speak up. You got to be more confident. It's like, bitch, I am confident. I'm just quiet right now. Like, I'm good. Thank you very much. Like, how about we just start allowing the people who are a little more deliberate and paced to be that and know that's their style. And then know, is that a good style for our company?
Right.
Like, you're getting who they are and you want them to show up that way. So I think it's really important that we don't try to fit this mold of this outgoing, super confident, whatever it is we think we need to be.
Yeah, if that's not authentically you.
Exactly. You need to be that in your own body. So like, be your own authentic, confident self in your way.
Yes.
So that I think is huge.
That's great advice.
Because when you're showing up, then it is much easier to focus on what is being asked and responding versus trying to figure out how to play the game.
Yes.
Because
it's exhausting.
Long term, it is not going to work for anybody.
No.
You are getting yourself in a position where you are going to end up burning out because you're going to be in a job that you're not a good fit for.
Right.
Or you are spending all this time and money recruiting and getting these people in who aren't the right fit, and then you're spending all the time, money, energy, whatever.
Yeah.
So it really is a lose-lose.
It is.
But I think it has to, like, the companies have to embrace the idea that a good employee looks and can sound different. They don't all have to look and sound exactly the same way.
Yes.
There's ways to ask questions to really get to the root of who somebody is and find out if they're a good match.
Yes.
And they could be this quiet little church mouse and be just the most incredible blank. And you know that because you're asking the right questions.
Yes,
versus
exactly.
just taking it at just that face value. So
yeah, and that's something that is really important that we advise our clients on all the time, is having an understanding of the behavioral profile that's most appropriate for each position that you're trying to fill. Because a lot of times when you have hiring managers who are trying to fill positions and they don't have clarity on what that behavioral piece looks like,
right,
they tend to hire in their own image and likeness.
Yep.
And so then you end up with a team of a lot of the same personalities, which there's strengths and shortcomings to that, certainly. Having an understanding of the value that all these different behavioral types bring to creating a well-rounded team is super, super important. And then I think if you've got a good understanding of that, you're much better equipped to go into these interview conversations, being able to pinpoint, okay, these are the types of behavioral characteristics that we're looking for.
Yes.
Here's the questions we need to ask to draw out those examples. And now we can determine where there's alignment.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. It's so important. And the good ones do it well. And the ones who don't feel the consequence of that.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be that way. So I think it's an important thing for companies to really make sure they're taking into account.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. All right. So my last question for you is, so somebody's listening to the podcast today. You've shared a ton of tips, a ton of great information. If there's one, we'll call it little nugget, that you say, if you take nothing else from this episode today, what's that one thing that you want them to walk away with?
Okay, it's a 1 point.
That's fine.
It's
I'll accept that.
It's a 1.5.
Yeah, that's fine.
Eye contact and match your nonverbal and your verbal and your paraverbal.
Yeah.
Make sure that you are coming off like an authentic person who you exactly are. If you're excited, make your face excited.
Yeah, be excited.
Yeah. If you're worried,
yeah,
like, I'm really worried about this. Like, that's weird. Be like, I'm a little worried about this. You know, like, match it. You need to be presenting yourself in an authentic, genuine way so that you can be relatable and you can determine if you are the right fit for them and they are the right fit for you.
Yeah.
So matching all of those pieces, I think, is the most important.
Yeah.
And eye contact.
I agree. And I think there's an opportunity for practicing, right? If you're feeling uncomfortable, if you don't know how you come across in an interview environment. And this is something that we talked about when I interviewed the owner of our firm, Aaron Phillips. He's got a 7-step process for people who are looking to find their next career. So if you listen to that episode, we talked about this as well. Record yourself. Having a conversation, ask yourself the question as the interviewer and then give your answer.
Yeah.
And pay close attention, not just to what you're saying, but how you look when you say it.
Right.
What are my eyes doing? Where am I looking? What is my face doing? Am I talking about how excited I am about this position, but I'm talking in a really monotone voice? Like,
yes.
Does not match.
Yes.
So,
am I checking my phone?
Yeah, right.
Like, you should not be checking your phone.
Please just put the phone,
Please
put it
take
in another
your
room.
watch off for the love of God. Oh, can that be my takeaway? Take off your freaking watch. You don't need to be tapping your watch during a thing.
If you get texts, calls, etc. on your watch, take it off for the interview. There are a few things more frustrating to me when I'm talking to somebody, interview or otherwise, when they're like looking at their watch because they just got a text. I'm like, can we? Okay.
I'd rather just pick up your phone, honestly.
Right?
Like, don't
At
look at
that
your
point,
watch.
yes.
Because then I'm like, I'm sorry, am I boring you?
Yeah.
Or are you just checking your text message?
It's one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yes.
I'm totally with you on that. So yeah, that's good advice too. So yeah, practice. I think it gives you a good opportunity to see what you look like and make some adjustments. So then you're going into that interview, hopefully feeling even less nervous and way more prepared.
Absolutely agreed.
Well, that brings us to the end of our episode.
Okay.
So, Casie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, it's
really
great to be here.
Appreciate it. And for those of you who are listening, thank you for listening. You can find our podcast on Spotify. If you have not subscribed, please be sure to do that so you get all of the new episodes that are coming out when they become available. We are also on LinkedIn at Decision Associates. Our website is decisionassociates.net. You can connect with us in all of those different places. We hope you do. And we thank you so much for listening. And we have to do, my co-host Elizabeth is real big on the round of applause at the end of the episode.
Okay.
So we're going to say, yes, we did it. We got through the episode. We did a great job.
Yay.
Yay. All right. Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you next time.